Hello, listeners. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Has your mind ever felt like a runaway carousel, spinning endlessly with worries, even when your body is completely exhausted?
Oh man, yeah. That is just an incredibly visceral, universally exhausting experience, isn't it?
It really is.
Like you're lying there, totally physically drained, completely ready for sleep. I mean, your eyes are heavy.
Right, you just want to pass out.
Exactly. But your brain has suddenly, without your permission, decided that right now is the absolute perfect time to audit every single interaction you had that day.
Oh, the worst.
It reviews every word you spoke, dissects the tone you used, and categorizes every possible mistake you might have made.
Welcome to Everyday English Flow, where we have real conversations about different topics in English, which improves your listening skills.
We're so glad you're here.
We really are. We are incredibly glad you have joined us for this special deep dive session of the flow. Today, we are putting a magnifying glass on something that every single advanced language learner faces.
Yeah, especially those pushing toward that elusive C1 fluency.
Exactly. We are tackling the psychology of the overactive mind. Our mission today is to help you master the advanced vocabulary of overthinking.
And, tear down those psychological barriers of language learning so you can dramatically improve your speaking and listening skills.
Plus, we have a special bonus mindset shift waiting for you at the very end of our discussion today that you definitely won't want to miss.
Because achieving true C1 fluency isn't just about, well, memorizing a textbook of grammar rules, right? Or conditional clauses.
No, not at all.
It's deeply rooted in understanding the psychology of communication itself. I mean, the mechanics of the language are really only half the battle.
So true. What's the other half then?
The other half, which is honestly the much harder half, is managing the immense mental load so that your English can actually flow naturally.
Rather than feeling forced through this, heavy filter of anxiety.
Spot on.
I completely agree. And to keep our discussion firmly grounded, and to make sure we don't get lost in the weeds of psychology, I want to outline exactly what we're going to accomplish together.
Good idea. Give us the roadmap.
Today, we have a total of 8 important points to cover. That's 3 common overthinking situations, 3 actionable tricks to stop it, and 2 massive mental mistakes to avoid.
That is a solid lineup.
Yeah, we're going to navigate these step by step. But instead of just giving you a list, we're going to explore the underlying mechanisms, like why does your brain do this?
Right, and how can you verbally articulate the state using C1 level English? And practically, how do you shut it down?
And we are sitting right here with you on this journey. Think of us as your friendly information givers.
We are just unpacking the cognitive science and the high-level language behind these very human experiences.
You are certainly not alone in this feeling. And by the time we wrap up this deep dive, you will possess a completely new, sophisticated toolkit for handling these moments of mental gridlock.
I love that phrase, mental gridlock.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the foundational concept, the anatomy of overthinking itself.
Because before we can stop it, we need to precisely define the beast we are fighting, right?
Exactly.
Well, if we look at overthinking from a cognitive perspective, at its very core, it is when your thoughts loop endlessly without ever arriving at a conclusion.
Like a broken record.
Yeah, exactly like that. Psychologists often refer to this as rumination. It's this cognitive trap where your mind becomes stuck on a specific, usually negative track.
Making it incredibly difficult to detach from minor details, I assume.
Oh, absolutely. You analyze, you scrutinize, and you just replay events in your head over and over.
Awfully trying to find a sense of certainty, maybe.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
You want certainty in situations where certainty simply does not exist. It's the definition of mental wheel spinning.
Right. You are burning an incredible amount of fuel, but the vehicle isn't moving forward.
Perfect analogy.
Which brings us perfectly to the metaphor I used in our opening question, the word carousel.
Oh, yes, the carousel.
Now, for our listeners who are operating at or aiming for a C1 level, you obviously know the physical definition of a carousel.
Right, the amusement park ride.
Yeah, that large merry-go-round with the painted wooden horses that just goes in circles while that carnival music plays.
But linguistically, when we use this word as a metaphor to describe a mental state, it takes on a much more sophisticated nuance.
Precisely. We aren't talking about a fun childhood ride here.
No, not at all. When a native or advanced speaker refers to a carousel of thoughts, they are invoking a very specific type of psychological entrapment.
A carousel is visually overwhelming, right?
Very. And it operates in a strict, unbreakable circle. Plus, crucially, once it gains momentum, it is very difficult and disorienting to step off.
So it is repetitive motion without progress.
Exactly.
Let me give you an example sentence to really cement how this word functions in advanced conversation.
Go for it.
You could say, after the meeting, my thoughts were spinning like a carousel, going round and round without stopping, analyzing every single word I said.
That is such a good example. Notice how you paired the verb spinning with it.
Yeah, it instantly paints a vivid kinetic picture for whoever you are speaking to.
They don't just understand that you are worried. They understand the mechanics of your worry. They get that you feel trapped in a cyclical loop.
And that cyclical loop, that spinning feeling, rarely just happens in a vacuum.
Oh, definitely not. It almost always gets triggered by very specific daily modern events.
Which leads us directly into the first of our 3 common situations, digital anxiety.
Specifically, the modern asynchronous torture of texting.
Oh, the texting trap. This is such a universal experience. But I actually want to push back on something here.
Okay, what's that?
Why is texting, which gives us literally all the time in the world to formulate our English perfectly, somehow more anxiety-inducing than having a live face-to-face conversation?
Where you have to think on your feet.
Yeah. Shouldn't texting be easier for a language learner?
That is a brilliant question, and it gets to the absolute heart of digital anxiety.
Okay, tell me why.
You would think the luxury of time would lower the pressure, but it actually creates a vacuum for overthinking.
How so?
Well, in a face-to-face conversation, you have what linguists call prosody, the tone of voice, the rhythm, the pitch.
Right, you can hear how they're saying it.
Exactly. You also have kinesics, body language, facial expressions, hand gestures. These nonverbal cues carry about 70 to 80% of the actual meaning of the communication.
Oh, wow, that much.
Yeah. So when you strip all of that away in a text message, you are left with cold, naked words. And because you have the time to edit, your brain demands perfection.
So the luxury of time basically becomes a curse.
Basically, yeah.
Let's paint the picture for our listeners. Imagine you are drafting a text message to a new colleague or, an acquaintance you're trying to build a relationship with.
Okay, setting the scene.
You type out a simple invitation, just, hi, do you want to have coffee tomorrow?
And immediately the carousel starts spinning.
Yes. You stare at the glowing screen. You begin agonizing over the simplest vocabulary.
Your brain says, wait, is hi too casual for this dynamic? Should I say hello instead?
Does hello sound too formal and cold? Should I add an exclamation mark to seem friendly?
Or does that make me look overly enthusiastic and desperate?
Exactly. You end up spending 10 minutes analyzing the micro nuances of a 9-word message.
And the true psychological test doesn't stop once you finally hit send.
No, it gets worse.
In fact, for many people, pressing send is precisely when the cognitive carousel kicks into its highest gear.
Because texting is asynchronous communication, right?
Yes. Meaning the two parties are not engaged at exactly the same time. You send the message, and then you are forced into a state of waiting.
Just silence. 10 minutes pass, 1 hour passes.
2 hours pass, and your phone remains entirely blank.
And the panic absolutely sets in.
It really does. The absence of a reply becomes a blank canvas for your insecurities.
Your brain immediately starts drafting these terrible fictional narratives to explain the silence. You think, are they angry with me?
Did my English sound overly demanding? Was my phrasing culturally inappropriate?
Did I use the wrong preposition and completely alter the meaning of the sentence?
It's intense. Your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, actually interprets a delayed text message as a social threat.
To navigate this exact scenario in English, let's look at a highly versatile C1 phrasal verb that perfectly captures the social dynamics of these situations.
Oh, this is a great one. The phrase is play along.
Let's clearly define that for our listeners.
Yeah.
To play along with something means to pretend to agree with someone, or to cooperate in a situation, even if you don't fully believe it or understand it.
Right. You might do it for fun, as part of a joke, or simply to avoid creating conflict or awkwardness in a social setting.
You are essentially agreeing to participate in a shared reality that someone else has constructed.
Exactly. A great example sentence to demonstrate this would be, I didn't really know the complex rules of the board game, but I decided to just play along so I wouldn't ruin the fun for everyone else.
It implies a conscious willingness to participate in a hypothetical or ongoing scenario.
Yeah. So let's play along right now with a little practical role play to demonstrate this digital anxiety.
Okay, I'm in. Imagine I am your friend. I sent you a message 3 hours ago asking a relatively simple question, and you haven't replied.
Got it.
I am sitting on my couch, staring at my phone, completely stressed out. My internal monologue is racing. I'm thinking, he clearly hates me.
Oh, no.
I definitely offended him with my terrible grammar. I should never have used the present perfect tense there. It sounded pretentious.
The carousel is spinning fast.
My anxiety is at a 10. Finally, my phone buzzes. You call me.
And I would answer the phone and say completely casually, hey, I am so incredibly sorry I didn't reply earlier.
And I'm just bracing myself for the worst.
But I'd say I was pulled into an unexpected, grueling 3-hour meeting. My phone was buried at the bottom of my bag on silent mode, and I just this very second looked at my screen. The grammar in your text was flawless, by the way. Everything is totally fine.
And in a fraction of a second, the massive impending catastrophe completely vanishes into thin air.
It just disappears.
The actual reality of this situation was incredibly mundane. A silent phone trapped in a leather bag during a boring corporate meeting.
Yep. But your overthinking mind, deprived of context, had constructed a Shakespearean tragedy of rejection and grammatical failure.
This specific sequence of events happens to absolutely everyone in every language, constantly.
It really does. And because of how deeply embedded this experience is in modern life, having the precise, nuanced English phrases to describe this internal feeling is essential.
Certainly.
Interestingly, clinical psychologists note that simply being able to accurately articulate your mental state, a process called affect labeling, measurably reduces the activity in the fear centers of your brain.
Wow, really? So putting the anxiety into precise words diminishes its power.
Yes, that is exactly what the research showed.
That is a crucial insight. It isn't just about learning vocabulary to pass a test. It's about learning vocabulary to regulate your own nervous system.
Exactly. But here is where we need to elevate the lesson.
Okay, how so?
Often, language learners rely on very basic A2 or B1 phrases like I am thinking too much or I am worrying.
Right. Those are fine, but they don't capture the true depth of the experience.
Exactly. We want to equip you with highly advanced C1 level phrases to express this exact situation. Let's really focus on the nuance of the language here.
Okay, I'm ready. If you want to communicate that you are trapped in that cognitive loop, instead of saying, I am thinking too much, what would a C1 speaker say?
A C1 speaker would say, I am getting completely bogged down in the minutia.
I am getting completely bogged down in the minutia. Let's break that down. To get bogged down means to become stuck in mud, unable to move forward.
Right.
And minutia refers to the tiny, trivial, almost insignificant details of a situation.
Yes, the very small stuff.
So by using this phrase, you are painting a picture that you are stuck in the mud of tiny, irrelevant details. It shows immense self-awareness.
It really does. Now, the second incredibly common C1 phrase to describe the escalation of anxiety is, I can feel myself spiraling.
I can feel myself spiraling. Think of an airplane that has lost its engine, right? Spinning in a downward spiral toward the ground.
Exactly, that downward momentum.
When you say you are spiraling, you are communicating that your negative thoughts are gaining momentum and pulling you down faster and faster.
And that you feel a loss of control. It is a fantastic phrase to use when you are confiding in a trusted friend, asking them to help pull you out of that mental dive.
I love that one. What's the third phrase?
A third phrase, which shifts the focus to the sheer volume of the overthinking, is, I am completely paralyzed by analysis.
Paralyzed by analysis or analysis paralysis?
Yeah, both work perfectly.
This implies that you have thought about a situation from so many different angles and considered so many possible outcomes that you are now physically or mentally incapable of making a decision or taking an action.
Yes. Using phrases like bogged down in minutia, spiraling, and paralyzed by analysis elevates your English exponentially.
It demonstrates to the listener that you don't just know words, but that you possess deep emotional intelligence and the ability to articulate complex internal states.
Which perfectly rounds out our exploration of digital anxiety and equips you with some serious linguistic firepower.
It absolutely does. And looking at the time, we have just reached our 10-minute milestone for today's deep dive.
Time flies.
It really does. We want to take a brief, quick second to step out of the psychology and speak directly to you, our amazing listeners.
Yeah, if you are finding value in this level of detailed breakdown, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Everyday English Flow.
The algorithms that govern these platforms run entirely on your engagement. Your support absolutely fuels our mission to bring you these intricate, real conversations.
Absolutely. Sharing this audio with just one other English learner in your network makes a massive, tangible difference for us.
It really helps build this incredible global community of dedicated language learners. So please hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and let's jump right back into the depths of our discussion.
Sounds good. Having thoroughly dissected the asynchronous world of digital anxiety, we must now pivot to our second major overthinking situation.
Which operates in real time, right?
Yes, and is arguably even more intense for the nervous system. We're talking about social paralysis.
Particularly the act of navigating a room full of new faces.
Exactly. Situation number 2, meeting new people. Let's set the stage for this one because the environment really dictates the anxiety.
Imagine the scene clearly in your mind. You are walking into a crowded networking event where you don't know a single soul.
Or perhaps you're stepping into a brand new high-level English class for the very first time.
Oh, that's a stressful one. You turn the handle, push open the door, and you are immediately confronted with a room full of unfamiliar faces.
Instantly, your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, your heart rate spikes, your palms might sweat slightly.
And your internal monologue just starts screaming at full volume. Where do I look? Who should I approach first?
What should my opening sentence be? Do they already think I look out of place?
What if someone asks me a complex question about my career and I entirely freeze up?
Right. It is a tsunami of social pressure hitting you all at once.
And from a cognitive load perspective, when you are attempting to process all of those environmental variables simultaneously, like the lighting, the noise level, the body language of 30 different strangers, your cognitive bandwidth is completely maxed out.
You basically have no processing power left for language retrieval.
This is where we want to introduce a beautifully understated idiomatic phrase.
Instead of loudly proclaiming, "I am panicking," a sophisticated, emotional regulated C1 speaker might simply touch their forehead and say, "My mind is a little too busy right now."
My mind is a little too busy right now. I absolutely love the elegance of this phrase. It feels so grounded.
It really is.
But let me challenge this slightly. If I am genuinely having a moment of intense panic, isn't saying my mind is busy downplaying the reality of what I'm experiencing?
That's a fair question.
Shouldn't I express the severity of the anxiety?
That is a very perceptive point, but the understatement is exactly where the power lies. Let's analyze why this is such a potent expression.
Okay, I'm listening.
It is a deliberate, tactical understatement. It clearly communicates to the listener that you are experiencing cognitive overload, that the demands on your brain currently exceed your processing capacity.
But it does so without sounding hysterical, fragile, or overly dramatic.
Exactly. It is calm, it is incredibly descriptive, and most importantly, it claims ownership of the feeling without letting the feeling define your identity in that moment.
I see. It establishes a boundary.
Yes, precisely.
If you walk up to a host at a bustling party and blurt out, "I am completely freaking out and having a panic attack," the host might become highly alarmed.
And suddenly you are the center of a dramatic crisis, which actually creates more anxiety.
But if you smile softly, take a deliberate breath, and say, "I just need to step onto the balcony for a moment. My mind is a little too busy right now," the host immediately understands the subtext.
They respect your need to calibrate your sensory input. It is an incredibly mature, socially calibrated way to express vulnerability.
What's fascinating here is the deep evolutionary psychology behind this specific flavor of social judgment.
Right. Why do we care so much about what strangers at a networking event think of us?
Exactly. When we enter a room full of unknown individuals, our ancient evolutionary brain instantly flips into threat assessment mode.
We are biologically wired to be hypervigilant about the opinions of the tribe.
Because if you go back thousands of years, being socially rejected or ostracized by the group didn't just mean you had a bad evening.
It meant literal danger. It meant you were cut off from food, shelter, and protection.
So your ancient brain starts overanalyzing every tiny micro-expression, every raised eyebrow, and every subtle shift in tone to ensure your social survival.
It is utterly exhausting. You are essentially running complex mathematical equations on facial expressions, posture, and tone of voice, all while simultaneously trying to search your mental database for the correct English vocabulary.
And conjugate verbs in real time. And remember to smile.
It is like trying to drive a complicated manual transmission car on a steep hill while the passenger is shouting advanced calculus problems at you.
The engine is going to stall.
The manual car analogy is perfect because it highlights the issue of limited working memory. But here is the profound relief. the psychological antidote to this specific paralysis.
I can't wait to hear it.
It is widely believed by leading social psychologists and validated by numerous peer-reviewed studies that the spotlight effect is a complete and total cognitive illusion.
The spotlight effect. Let's define that clearly for our listeners.
The spotlight effect is the pervasive psychological bias where an individual believes that they are being noticed, observed, and judged by others significantly more than they actually are.
You feel like there is a literal, blinding theatrical spotlight shining directly on you.
Highlighting every flaw, every mispronounced word, every awkward gesture.
And the reality.
The objective truth of the room. Everyone in that space is likely feeling the exact same low-level humming anxiety. They are all desperately worried about how they're being perceived, what they look like, and what they're going to say next. You are absolutely never alone in this feeling.
Okay, but let me push back with a very real scenario.
Sure.
What if I make a glaring, obvious mistake? What if I accidentally spill my drink on my shirt? Or completely butcher a sentence and say something totally nonsensical?
That does happen.
At that point, the spotlight isn't an illusion, right? People are actually looking at me and judging me.
That is the crucial distinction. Yes, people notice the spilled drink. Yes, they might notice the grammatical error.
So they do see it.
But the illusion isn't that people are blind. The illusion is the weight and duration of their judgment.
Oh, I get it.
Your overthinking mind tells you, they will remember this forever and my reputation is permanently destroyed. The reality is, they notice the error for perhaps 3 seconds, register it as a minor human fumble, and then their brain immediately snaps back to their favorite subject.
Themselves.
Exactly. They go back to worrying about their own spilled drinks and their own grammar. Their judgment does not carry the existential, life-destroying weight that your amygdala thinks it does.
That is an incredibly liberating perspective. When you walk into that terrifying new C1 English class, the person sitting next to you isn't taking mental notes on your imperfect use of the past perfect continuous tense.
No, they are silently sweating, desperately praying that the teacher doesn't call on them to read the first paragraph.
Everyone is fighting their own internal carousel of insecurities.
Exactly. Recognizing that shared, messy humanity instantly lowers the stakes of these social interactions. It removes the imaginary spotlight.
This realization transitions us flawlessly into situation number 3, which is the absolute core of why so many listeners tune into our sessions.
The language learner's dilemma.
Specifically, the intense, sometimes paralyzing fear of making mistakes when actively speaking English.
For an advanced C1 learner, this is frequently the final, most agonizing hurdle. You have spent years acquiring the vocabulary.
You understand the intricate grammar rules in theory. You can pass the written exams.
But the very second you are required to open your mouth and produce the language dynamically in real time, the overthinking paralyzes your vocal cords.
You freeze up entirely out of a crippling fear that your pronunciation isn't perfectly native-like or that your syntax will betray you as a non-native speaker.
Let's bring this down to a very granular, relatable level. Let's talk about the classic coffee shop example.
Oh, this scenario plays out thousands of times a day across the globe.
Imagine you are standing in line at a busy, noisy cafe in London or New York. You just want a very simple, caffeinated beverage.
But as the line inches forward and you get closer to the barista, your brain initiates a massive, high-stakes debate.
You think, okay, I want coffee with milk. Wait, do I say coffee with milk or is it white coffee?
Is white coffee strictly a British term? Am I in America right now? Should I ask for a latte?
What if I say coffee with milk and the barista gives me a weird look because that's not how locals say it?
By the time it is actually your turn to step up to the register, your heart is pounding out of your chest over the word milk.
It is the ultimate example of the brain's remarkable ability to overcomplicate an inherently simple task.
You have turned a basic transactional exchange into a referendum on your intelligence.
And here is a core philosophical truth that every single advanced language learner must absolutely internalize if they ever want to achieve fluency.
What is it?
Communication is the goal, not perfection.
I'm going to repeat that because I want it to echo in the ears of every listener right now. Communication is the goal, not perfection.
Let's analyze the mechanics of that coffee shop interaction. If you walk up to the counter, smile, and say, "I would like a coffee with milk, please," the barista knows precisely what to pour into your cup.
If you say white coffee, they might pause for a fraction of a second to ask for clarification, like, do you mean a latte or drip coffee with room for milk?
But the ultimate tangible result is exactly the same. You receive your coffee. The interaction was a functional success. Information was transferred from one brain to another.
Furthermore, it is a massive fallacy to believe that native speakers operate with flawless grammar.
They make mistakes constantly, every single day. They stutter, they lose their train of thought, they use the wrong preposition.
They start sentences and abandon them halfway through. They mix up their idioms.
The concept of flawless textbook speech simply does not exist in the real, chaotic world of spoken language.
It really doesn't. If you listen closely to how we speak in our own native languages, whatever your mother tongue might be, we are incredibly messy.
Very messy.
We pause, we use filler words like, and we double back, we self-correct in real time.
We need to stop holding our second language, our English, to a mythical standard of absolute perfection that we don't even demand of our native tongue.
To combat this specific debilitating brand of overthinking, we need to actively replace the anxious, looping thoughts with grounding, undeniable truths.
We need to rewire the cognitive response.
We are going to practice repeating some positive mantras together right now. And a mantra, for those unfamiliar, is simply a short, powerful phrase that you repeat to yourself.
It disrupts a negative thought pattern and consciously changes your mindset.
I want you, the listener, to actually engage physically with this. Say these out loud with us right now, wherever you are. The first mantra is, it's okay to make mistakes.
Let the biological truth of that statement settle into your consciousness. It's okay to make mistakes.
Mistakes are not moral failures.
No, they are the exact necessary neurological mechanism by which your brain learns to map the boundaries of a new language.
When you make an error and receive gentle correction or realize it yourself, your brain creates a new neural pathway.
Without the friction of those mistakes, there is no structural progress in the brain.
Our second mantra is a statement of identity. I am learning, it's okay.
I am learning, it's okay. By consciously adopting the identity of a learner, you instantly give yourself permission to be imperfect.
It acts as a psychological shield against the harsh, unforgiving judgment of your own overthinking mind.
A master is expected to be flawless. A learner is expected to stumble. Claim the title of learner.
I am learning, it's okay. Honestly, it feels like a physical relief just to say it out loud.
It really does. It takes that incredibly heavy backpack of pressure completely off your shoulders.
This raises an important question, though, and it's one we must confront. Why do we voluntarily carry that heavy backpack?
Why do we subject ourselves to this standard of absolute perfection?
Yeah, why?
Psychological research suggests it is because, as adults, we deeply tie our perception of our own intellectual identity to our language ability.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense.
In our native language, we are articulate, nuanced, funny, and sophisticated. When we can't express those complex adult thoughts with the same effortless precision in English, we feel incredibly vulnerable.
We feel like we are appearing less intelligent or childish to the listener.
But true intelligence in a globalized world is not measured by perfect, error-free syntax. It is measured by the sheer courage to communicate across cultural and linguistic boundaries.
That is an incredibly profound reframing. Intelligence is the courage to communicate. I love that.
It changes everything once you internalize it.
So we have thoroughly identified and dissected the three massive situational traps: the asynchronous agony of texting anxiety, the cognitive overload of social paralysis, and the perfectionist fear of making language mistakes.
Now we are shifting gears. We are moving from theory into the action phase.
We promised you 3 actionable tricks to quiet the mind, disrupt the loops, and stop the carousel from spinning, and we're delivering them right now.
These are not abstract concepts. These are highly practical, immediate, biologically grounded tools you can deploy the exact moment you feel the overthinking beginning to take over your faculties.
Trick 1 is almost deceptively simple, and people often dismiss it because it sounds too basic, but it's deeply anchored in human biology and scientifically proven to work.
The power of breath. Just breathe.
We mentioned earlier that when you start overthinking, your brain perceives a threat.
Consequently, your body's sympathetic nervous system activates. You are plunged into fight or flight mode.
Physiologically, your heart rate increases dramatically, your chest cavity tightens, your blood pressure spikes, and your breathing becomes very shallow and rapid, situated high in your chest.
By forcing yourself to take a deliberate, deep, slow breath, expanding your diaphragm, you physically stimulate the vagus nerve.
This sends an immediate chemical signal to your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest system telling it to stand down.
You are literally biochemically telling your brain, we are not currently being chased by a predator, we are safe.
I want everyone to try it right now. Stop whatever you're doing just for 5 seconds. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, letting your stomach expand.
Hold it for a fraction of a second and let it out incredibly slowly through your mouth.
It is the biological equivalent of hitting a hard reset button on a freezing computer.
It clears the cognitive static in your head just long enough for your rational brain, your prefrontal cortex, to regain control from the panicked amygdala.
And once you have taken that vital breath and reclaimed your cognitive bandwidth, you are prepared for trick 2.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Trick 2 is a psychological strategy called chunking the challenge.
To understand this, we need to look at an essential C1 phrasal verb, breakdown.
To break down something, when used in this specific problem-solving context, means to take a massive, overwhelmingly complex task or problem and systematically separate it into much smaller, highly manageable, and completely unintimidating individual pieces.
Let's give you a crystal clear example sentence. In order to pass the grueling C1 advanced exam, you cannot just study everything at once. You need to break down your massive study schedule into daily, highly focused 15-minute reading sessions.
You don't wake up and declare, I will master the C1 language today. That is impossible.
You break it down into a single grammar rule or a single deep dive segment.
Exactly right. And we must apply this chunking philosophy directly to overthinking.
When your mind is spinning out of control, it is almost always because you are attempting to process the entirety of a massive challenge all at exactly the same time.
Your brain cannot handle the volume of variables.
Let's go back to our networking event scenario. Imagine your overall goal is to attend this corporate mixer and speak English, networking with native speakers, for an entire hour.
Looking at that overarching goal is like standing at the base of Mount Everest without oxygen.
Your brain immediately starts calculating the impossibility. An hour. 60 entire minutes. I cannot possibly sustain perfect, engaging English grammar for an hour.
I will run out of relevant vocabulary after 10 minutes. I won't understand their fast-paced jokes. There will be awkward silences.
And so, paralyzed by the sheer size of the mountain, you freeze. You make an excuse, you turn around, and you don't even walk into the building.
But if you rigorously apply the chunking trick, you completely refuse to look at the summit of the mountain.
You restrict your vision entirely to the very first step.
You tell yourself, I am absolutely not going to worry about the next 60 minutes. That is future me's problem.
My only goal, my single chunk for right now, is to walk up to one single person near the doorway, smile, and say, hello, I'm Sarah. It is a pleasure to meet you.
And that is it. Just one single rehearsed sentence. Saying hello and introducing yourself to one human being is a tiny, incredibly manageable step.
It is a completely achievable cognitive chunk. And what is the psychological result?
You walk up, you execute the chunk, you say hello, they smile and reply, and suddenly, magically, you are engaged in a real conversation.
The physical momentum takes over. The mountain shrinks into a molehill because you refuse to process anything other than the immediate single step right in front of your feet.
That is the transformative magic of breaking things down. It bypasses the brain's alarm system.
However, if you have taken your deep breath and you have attempted to chunk the challenge, but the carousel is stubbornly continuing to spin and the thoughts are still looping, it is time to deploy trick 3.
Externalizing the worry.
Externalizing. This essentially means taking the abstract, floating thought and physically getting it out of the confines of your own skull.
Overthinking is a fungus that absolutely thrives in the dark isolation of your mind.
That's a gross but accurate metaphor.
Right. When anxious thoughts are locked entirely inside your head, they echo, they magnify, they distort reality, and they begin to feel like absolute, undeniable facts.
But the fascinating thing about human neurology is that the moment you are forced to translate those abstract anxieties into physical spoken words, pushing them through Broca's area of the brain to form sentences and speaking them aloud to another human being, they immediately shrink.
They lose their hypnotic power. They are suddenly exposed to the harsh, objective light of reality.
We want to equip you with a highly effective, socially graceful phrase to use for this exact moment.
It is polite, it demonstrates emotional vulnerability, and it asks for assistance in a very mature, C1 appropriate manner.
The phrase is simply, I'm worrying about this. Can I talk to you for a second?
I'm worrying about this. Can I talk to you for a second? This is brilliant. Because it clearly signals to the listener that you are not asking them to solve a massive, life-altering crisis.
Nor are you asking them to fix your life.
You are simply signaling that you need a sounding board. You need their ears to help you externalize a looping thought.
If I walk into your office and say, I am really worrying about this response I drafted to the regional manager. Can I talk to you for a second? And I proceed to read the email out loud to you.
Right.
9 times out of 10, just by hearing my own voice say the words into the air, I pause and realize, oh, actually, listening to myself, that sounds completely professional and fine. I was totally overreacting.
The overthinking evaporates the instant it hits the oxygen in the room.
Precisely. You are essentially borrowing someone else's calm, objective nervous system to recalibrate your own highly distorted, panicked reality.
So, to review your tactical toolkit. Trick 1, breathe to biologically reset the nervous system. Trick 2, break down the massive, terrifying challenge into a tiny single step.
And trick 3, externalize the worry by explicitly asking to talk it out with someone.
Now, with our defenses built, we are moving into the final major section of our psychological outline.
We are going to expose the 2 massive mental mistakes that English learners consistently and predictably fall into, sabotaging their own progress.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of language acquisition, overthinking isn't just about feeling temporarily nervous or uncomfortable. It actively, frequently leads to deeply ingrained cognitive distortions that halt learning.
The first of these massive mental mistakes is what cognitive behavioral therapists officially refer to as the catastrophe trap.
The catastrophe trap. This is a huge roadblock for intelligent learners. Let's look closely at the advanced vocabulary driving this concept.
The active verb is catastrophizing, which naturally derives from the noun catastrophe.
By definition, a catastrophe is a monumental event causing great, often sudden, and widespread damage or suffering. It is a total unmitigated disaster.
Therefore, catastrophizing is a severe cognitive distortion where your brain instantly imagines the absolute worst-case scenario.
The literal end of the world stemming from a tiny, completely insignificant, and highly probable human error. It is the ultimate slippery slope fallacy.
It is exactly like your brain deciding to write, direct, and produce a high-budget horror movie script based entirely on a simple spelling mistake.
Let's give our listeners a perfect example sentence to show how to use this in a professional context.
Good idea.
When she realized she made one small, harmless grammar mistake in her email to the client, she instantly started catastrophizing that she would lose the account, be fired from her job, and never work in the industry again.
Let's trace the absurd, rapid-fire logic of the catastrophizing mind. Imagine you are in a boardroom, you are speaking, and you accidentally say he do instead of he does.
Step 1, your conscious brain notes the grammatical error.
Step 2, the catastrophizing sequence engages at lightning speed. Every single one of my colleagues just noticed that. They all think my English is incredibly terrible.
They think I am poorly educated. My boss is currently thinking I am fundamentally incompetent. I will absolutely be passed over for the senior promotion next month.
I will inevitably lose my job. I will run out of savings. I will end up homeless.
You literally travel from missing a single S on a verb to total societal ruin in a matter of about 4 seconds.
It sounds incredibly absurd and almost comical when you say the whole sequence out loud. But I know, and you know, that in the dark isolation of the moment, the fear feels 100% physically real.
Your heart is racing as if you are actually being fired.
Here is the massive, undeniable reality check you absolutely need to combat this specific cognitive mistake. Other human beings either do not notice your small linguistic mistakes at all, or they notice them and forget them approximately 2 seconds later.
Human beings are, by their very nature, remarkably self-absorbed creatures. In that corporate boardroom, when you slipped up and said he do, the colleague sitting to your left was almost certainly obsessing over what they're having for lunch.
Or worrying about their own upcoming slide presentation, or wondering if they left the stove on at home.
They do not possess a mental ledger where they are meticulously recording your grammatical errors. The massive life-ending catastrophe exists nowhere else but in the private theater of your own mind.
Which brings us perfectly to the second massive mental mistake, which is a direct cousin of catastrophizing. It is a trap that keeps learners stuck at a B2 level forever.
It is the illusion of the perfect moment.
This is the seductive, dangerous trap of silent perfectionism.
It is the internal monologue of the highly capable learner who constantly negotiates with themselves, saying, I will finally speak up and contribute my ideas in the Monday meeting, but only when my industry vocabulary is absolutely perfect.
Or, I will finally start attending those local language exchange meetups, but only when I have completely and utterly mastered the nuances of the present perfect continuous tense.
I'll finally book that trip to London and talk to locals when I sound exactly like a native speaker from the BBC.
Exactly. You are holding your breath, waiting for a magical, shining moment of perfect linguistic readiness.
But here is the hard truth. That moment simply will never arrive.
Language is not a sterile mathematical equation to be solved privately on a whiteboard before you proudly display the answer to the class.
Language is inherently messy. It is organic, it is fluid, it is unpredictable, and it is built entirely on trial and error.
We have a core maxim for you to repeat, to remember, and to physically write down on a sticky note and put on your computer monitor. Done is better than perfect.
Let me say it again with feeling. Done is better than perfect.
Let's look at the neuroscience of why that maxim is true. Taking messy, imperfect action yields dramatically faster, deeper language acquisition than silent, anxious perfectionism ever will.
The learner who courageously speaks with broken, heavily accented grammar every single day is actively building myelin in their brain's neural pathways.
They will reach functional fluency years before the person who studies grammar textbooks in utter silence, waiting for perfection.
Messy action creates a collision with reality. That collision creates feedback. Feedback creates neuroplastic adaptation and learning.
Perfectionism creates absolutely nothing but delay and frustration.
Done is truly better than perfect. Go out into the world, make the glorious mistake, order the entirely wrong coffee, stumble over your introduction at the networking party, misuse a preposition in a meeting.
Because doing those things means you are actually in the arena. You are actively participating in the language, not just observing it from the sidelines.
Because when you do those things, despite the errors, you are successfully communicating your intent, which, as we clearly established earlier, is the entire fundamental goal of learning English in the first place.
This has been such a dense, powerful, and deeply psychological exploration of the mind today.
We have thoroughly covered the cognitive anatomy of the carousel. We dissected the 3 high-stress situations of texting anxiety, social paralysis, and speaking fear.
We armed you with the 3 physiological and psychological tricks of breathing, chunking the challenge, and externalizing the worry.
And we dismantled the massive mental mistakes of catastrophizing and waiting for the illusion of perfection.
It is a robust, comprehensive framework. It is a toolkit designed specifically for taking back control of your language journey from the overthinking mind.
And as we explicitly promised at the very beginning of the show, it is finally time for the bonus reveal.
We have a special, scientifically backed bonus mindset shift designed specifically to supercharge the progress of our C1 learners.
This mindset shift is the invisible foundation, the underlying secret to absolutely everything we have discussed today. The bonus mindset shift is simply this: be kind to yourself. Every small step is a big victory.
Now, at first glance, that sounds like something you would read on a cheap greeting card.
Yeah, it does. But let's explain why that isn't just a nice, fluffy motivational quote, but is actually rooted in hard biological science.
Practicing genuine self-compassion actually accelerates neurological learning. It is a biological fact.
When you aggressively beat yourself up over a language mistake, when your internal voice is cruel and punishing, you flood your brain with cortisol, which is the primary stress hormone.
High levels of cortisol literally and physically inhibit your brain's hippocampus, severely reducing your ability to form new memories and access previously learned vocabulary.
By being cruel to yourself, you are chemically making yourself less able to speak English.
However, when you actively practice self-compassion, when you take a breath and say, I am learning, it's okay you create a safe, low-stress neurological environment.
In this state, dopamine flows freely, neural pathways remain open and flexible, and your brain is optimally primed to absorb, synthesize, and retain the complex structures of the language.
Being genuinely kind to yourself is literally the most efficient, scientifically proven study method you possess.
Wow, let that sink in. Being kind to yourself is not just a nice idea, it is a biological study hack. It is a requirement for advanced learning.
That is absolutely incredible. I want every single listener who is with us right now to commit to this methodology. I want you to go to the comment box right down below this audio right now and write these exact 3 words. I stay committed.
By typing those 3 words, I stay committed, you are making a public physical promise to yourself to actively practice self-compassion, to stop waiting for the illusion of perfect, and to courageously push through the cognitive static of overthinking.
Go type it right now. We read every single one.
And while you are down there in the comments section making that commitment, we have an advanced idiom challenge for you.
We want to genuinely test your C1 vocabulary skills. We want you to explain this specific idiom in the comments to wrap your head around something.
What does it mean conceptually? And we want you to try to use it in an original sentence relating to the topic of overthinking.
I absolutely love that idiom. To wrap your head around something, it is so visual and so common in advanced English. Get in the comments, tell us what it means, and give us your absolute best example sentence.
Before we officially leave you today, please remember one last time to like, share, and subscribe to Everyday English Flow.
It honestly means the world to us, and it is the single mechanism that keeps these deep dives coming your way week after week.
We truly, deeply value your time, your attention, and your ongoing dedication to mastering the complexities of this language.
So what does this all mean? Looking back at the spinning carousels, the imagined catastrophes, the texting traps, and the paralysis of perfectionism. What does this all mean for your journey forward?
I will leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to ponder. If all of this exhausting overthinking is ultimately just your ancient brain's misguided way of trying to protect you from the dangers of the unknown, what would actually happen if you simply paused, thanked your brain for its diligent concern, but chose to boldly step into the messy unknown anyway?